Welcome to Take Up Your Space, the podcast where healing meets identity and where your story of trauma doesn't get the final word. I'm Tammy Bruni, and my passion is to help you find freedom on every level: psychological, spiritual, physiological, emotionally. Too many of us shrink back under the weight of stress, pain, and past experiences. But you were created to take up space, to walk boldly in your kingdom identity, and live fully in the purpose God designed for you. Each week we'll explore practical tools, biblical truths, and the science of healing so you can step out of survival and into wholeness. This is a safe space for your nervous system, your spirit, and your story to be seen and restored. If this resonates with you, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Share this podcast with a friend who needs encouragement, and visit lionsarise.org for resources, my trauma healing manual, online programs, and more ways to connect. Together, let's take up space. We were always meant to do this. When women have to stand up, there's a version of the story that doesn't get told very often. Not the one where the husband leads the family in prayer every morning and the wife walks beside him. That version gets told all the time. I want to talk about the other version. The one where she's the one up at 5 a.m. She's the one who organized the kids' Bibles. She's the one who carries the weight of her family's spiritual life, mostly alone, mostly in silence, and mostly wondering if something is wrong with her for needing to be different. If that is you, this episode is for you. And the first thing I want to say is, you are not failing, you are not too much, and you are not alone. Welcome back to Take Up Your Space. Today we are going into territory that I know a lot of you have been waiting for. We are talking about what it means to stand in faith when the person beside you, the person you love, isn't standing yet. We are talking about why this happens, what it does to your body, and what God has to say about women who step into gaps that were never supposed to be empty. This is going to be one of those episodes where I ask you to be really honest with yourself, not to beat yourself up, but to finally say out loud what you have been carrying quietly. So if you can, find a comfortable place to sit, maybe put your earphones on, and let's go. Why are so many women carrying this? Let's start by naming the reality clearly, because I think a lot of women suffer in silence, partly because no one is willing to say it out loud. In the majority of Christian homes, women are doing more of the spiritual heavy lifting than men. They are the ones attending church, the ones reading with the kids, the ones initiating prayer, the ones concerned about the spiritual temperature of the household. Now, I most certainly can identify with this. Now, I'm not here to shame men. We're going to do a whole episode on why men struggle after this, and it is one of the most important conversations we can have. But right now, I'm talking to you, and I want to help you understand why you are in this position, because it's not random. Reason number one, you were made for deep relational and spiritual attunement. Women on average are wired for relational and emotional attunement in a way that is just neurologically and physiologically real. Your brain tends to integrate emotional and rational processing more fluidly. Your nervous system is highly sensitive to emotional atmosphere of your home. You literally feel the spiritual temperature of your household in ways that your husband may not. And that sensitivity is a gift. But it also means that you notice that gap more acutely. You feel it, you worry about it. And because you feel it, you respond to it. And that's not weakness. This is your design responding to a real need. And many of you may identify with the frustration that you feel when you feel and you notice that gap and you almost feel like there's nothing you can do about it. So reason number 2, right? Churches often silently deputized women to fill the gap, right? We've been given that role, we've been given the badge. Here is something that doesn't get said enough. The church has largely failed to address male spiritual passivity directly, and women have had to quietly absorb the consequences of this. We preach headship. We talk about what godly male leadership looks like. And then we go silent on the reality that in the average congregation, women are the ones showing up, serving, praying, and raising children in faith, while a significant number of men are physically present but spiritually disengaged. Women have been deputized unofficially, invisibly, to carry the spiritual life of their families. And nobody gave them a ceremony or a job description. They just woke up one day and they were doing it. Reason number 3, we look at the double bind. If you step up, you're wrong. If you don't, then everything just drifts. Here is the thing that I hear from women over and over again, and it breaks my heart every time. I feel like I can't win. And this touches me deeply as well, because I can completely identify with this feeling. If I initiate prayer, he feels emasculated. If I bring the kids to church alone, I feel ashamed. If I say something, I'm nagging. If I say nothing, nothing happens. That double bind is real. I'm sure a lot of you can agree with that and identify with that. And it's exhausting. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you're navigating a situation that has no clean solution from the outside. There's no manual for this. Reason number 4, the weight accumulates slowly. Nobody wakes up and decides to carry their whole family spiritually. It accumulates. You pray because no one else does. You bring it up and nothing changes. So you just keep going. You add one more thing. You carry one more load and you keep going because you love your family. And then one day you realize you are exhausted in a way that sleep doesn't fix. You're carrying something that wasn't designed for one person alone to carry. So let's just have a look at what the Bible actually says about women who step up. And I want to spend some time here because I think a lot of women are quietly carrying a layer of shame under all of this, a sense that stepping into a spiritual gap in their marriage makes them somehow out of order, that they should be quieter, smaller, more submissive. So let me push back on that, gently but firmly, using the Word of God. There's a story in Exodus 4 that most people walk right past. And this really jumped out at me when I read it. And it's something I've read over many times. But in this particular instance, it's like God just spoke to me through this. And I knew that there was something here that I needed to share. So in Exodus 4, Moses has just received one of the greatest divine assignments in human history. Right? He's on his way to Egypt. And God shows up at the encampment and seeks to kill him. Not because Moses isn't called, not because Moses isn't gifted, but because Moses had neglected a covenant command. His son had not been circumcised, and circumcision was the sign of belonging to God's covenant people. So Moses, with all his calling and all his anointing, had let something important slip. And what happens next is what really stood out to me. It's not Moses who acts, it's his wife. Zipporah, a Midianite woman, not even raised in the Israelite covenant tradition, takes a stone and performs the circumcision herself. She acts very quickly without hesitation, And the text says, and God let him go. Remember, God was about to kill Moses. So Zipporah saved Moses' life. She preserved the covenant. She protected the mission of God, not by taking over, but because something critical needed to be done, and she was the one who did it. God did not rebuke her. He did not remove her. He honored the act. And sometimes women preserve covenant when men fail to act. The word doesn't call that rebellion. It calls it faithfulness. So let's look at other women in the word that have been honored for stepping into gaps. Abigail, she intervened with wisdom when her husband Nabal was foolish and dangerous and saved an entire household from destruction. Deborah led Israel as a judge and a prophet where no man was willing to step up, and God raised her not as a consolation prize, but as a first choice. Esther walked into the king's court where no man could, with the words, "If I perish, I perish," and she saved a nation. Hannah did not wait for her husband to intercede for her. She went to the temple herself. She wept before God herself and birthed a prophet. And the women of Acts 1, they were present in the upper room, part of the prayer that preceded Pentecost. Their intercession helped found the church. So do you notice what all these women have in common? They did not act out of bitterness or ambition. They acted because something was at stake and they were willing to move. God did not apologize for using them. He did not tell them to wait for a man to step up first. He honored their courage. So that is not a license to control your husband or to take over his life, but it is a biblical foundation for understanding that your faithfulness, your prayers, your showing up, your spiritual leadership in the absence of his is not a mistake. It is a calling in the season. And I can remember one of my most difficult seasons, and that was where I had to stand in the gap for my marriage. I had to step into that space because the marriage had come to a place of breakdown, and I had to own my part in it, but I also had to stand in the gap because sometimes we need to fight for something that will save our family, that will protect the legacy and the generations to come, even if our partner doesn't understand the importance and the implication of this. So I love to talk about the nervous system. And, you know, from our previous episodes, I've just shared a 6-episode series on the nervous system. So we have to bring this in, right? Because we're spirit, soul, and body. So I want to just give you an explanation on this again, right? What carrying too much does to your body. So we'll just do a little bit of a detour from our topic, and then we'll get back to it again. So this is just as important as the theology behind all of this, right? Because if I'm honest, a lot of women I talk to are not just spiritually tired. They are physically and neurologically depleted, and they don't understand why. They think it's because they are weak or because their faith isn't strong enough. So let me just give you a different framework. So let's just talk about the autonomic nervous system. Your nervous system has a built-in threat detection system. When it senses danger, real or perceived, it reacts. The job of the nervous system, as I've said before, is to keep you safe. It's to keep you alive. And so it does this through 3 main responses. You've probably heard 2 of them before. So let's just have a look at these nervous system states from polyvagal theory. State 1 is the ventral vagal, which is safe and connected, right? This is where you're meant to spend most of your time, in ventral vagal. You feel calm, connected, present. You can think clearly. You can laugh. You can pray with ease, be intimate with your husband, parent from a place of love, and your body is regulated. Your spirit is open. State 2 is sympathetic activation, which is fight or flight, which many of you have heard before. So when your nervous system perceives a threat, physical or emotional, it mobilizes. Heart rate increases, your muscle tightens, your mind sharpens into hypervigilance. And this is healthy and necessary in a very dangerous situation. But when a woman is in chronic sympathetic activation, always monitoring, always alert, always managing the spiritual atmosphere of her home, this state becomes the default and it's exhausting. So what are some of the signs that you are living in sympathetic activation? You cannot switch off even when there's nothing demanding your attention. You are irritable or anxious and don't fully know why. You feel like if you stop holding everything together, it will collapse. You lie awake at night running through what needs to happen. Your body is always slightly braced. Your jaw is tight. Your shoulders are up. Your breath is shallow. And so I think if you really do a check-in with your body, even right now, to just close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just do a body scan, is what we call it, from the top of your head down to your feet or from your feet up, and just notice where the tension is sitting in your body. How are you breathing? Does your chest feel tight? Your body will tell you in which state you're in. Right, so state number 3 is dorsal vagal. It's freeze and shut down. When the nervous system has been in fight or flight for too long without any relief, it sometimes does the opposite. It shuts down. This is the freeze response. This is the body's oldest protection mechanism. In women, it often looks like spiritual dryness, emotional numbness, depression, going through the motions without feeling, not caring about things that once really mattered to you, right? So it's just not having that interest. So what are some of the signs that you are in dorsal vagal shutdown? Maybe your prayer life feels empty. You can't feel God the way you used to. You feel disconnected from your own emotions. You're functioning, but something essential has gone really quiet inside. You feel flat, maybe heavy, or like you're watching your life from a slight distance. And spiritual things that used to move you no longer touch you. So I want to be really clear here. If you recognize yourself in that second or third state, it's not spiritual failure. This is your body telling you the truth that your nervous system is saying this load is too heavy, something needs to change. And so the most courageous thing you can do is to stop and listen. And I often will say to clients, give yourself permission to stop, to slow down, to do that thing that you need to take care of yourself. So let's just have a look at why this chronic spiritual responsibility that we have to take up as women activates our threat system. So here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand, and that is that your nervous system cannot tell the difference between a physical threat and an emotional or relational one. The same system that would activate if there was an intruder in your home activates when you sense that your family's spiritual life is at risk, when you feel the gap, when Sunday comes and your husband won't come to church, when something needs to be prayed about and your husband won't be part of that, when your children are asking questions and you don't know if anyone else is praying for them. Your nervous system treats that as a survival situation because to the part of your brain that runs the threat response, the well-being of your family is a survival issue. So you are not anxious because you're weak. You are not exhausted because your faith is insufficient. You are running on adrenaline and cortisol because your nervous system has been in a low-grade alert for months, maybe years, and that has a cost. So what do we do with all of this? How do we stand without breaking? So I don't want to just leave you with an explanation of all of this. I want to give you something practical, because I think that there are 3 things that women in this position need more than anything else. So the first thing is, name what you are actually carrying. The first thing is just honesty. Many women have never sat down and named clearly what they are holding. The spiritual responsibility, the loneliness of doing it alone, the grief of the partnership they hoped for, the fear underneath the busyness. And I want to invite you to do that this week, not to complain, not to perform, just to be honest with God about what is actually true. He can handle it. He's not surprised. I've many a time had to sit down and say to the Lord, please help me in this situation. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I have the strength to cope with this. Give me the grace that I need to get through this. Right? He understands. He's a loving father. He's a dad. And he's a safe place to go to. So the second thing is to regulate your nervous system. And this is spiritual work. Now, I know some of you might be rolling your eyes at nervous system talk in one of these types of faith podcasts, but hear me out, right? David wrote Psalms when he was terrified. He poured his body, his fear, his physical distress into prayer. You know, you can just read Psalms and you can see it. And Jesus wept, right? Paul said he was pressed on every side. Caring for your body is not separate from caring for your spirit. They are the same person, right? So here's a practice I want to give you. It's just simple. It works physiologically and you can do it anywhere, right? And this can be your emergency regulation tool. So this works really well because the extended exhale activates the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's rest and digest system, the one that says you are safe. So inhale through your nose for 4 counts and exhale slowly through your mouth for 6 counts. Repeat this 8 to 10 times. Make a sound when your breath comes out, because even the sound of the breath coming out helps to calm the nervous system. Do this before you pray, before you have a hard conversation, before bed when your mind won't stop, before you open your Bible when you feel spiritually flat. You're not just calming down, you are creating the neurological conditions in which your spirit can actually receive. The longer exhale is the key. It physically signals to your vagus nerve that the threat is past. Your body starts to down-regulate. Your prefrontal cortex, the part that can think clearly, feel compassion, and connect with God, comes back online. This is a really, really simple tool, and you might think, oh, it's not going to work, but I want to challenge you to try it and see the effect for yourself. Point number 3, release what is God's job, not yours. There's a line in Psalm 127 that I keep coming back to, and I love this, and I use it often as well when I teach, and even when I'm busy with something, I run it through this verse. And it's, unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. This is not a call to passivity, it's a call to partnership. You are not designed to be the architect and the builder and the security guard for your family's spiritual life. You were designed to be in partnership with the one who actually holds all of that. You cannot make your husband want God. Believe me, I've tried. It's the most exhausting thing, right? And to try and get through and to try and bring the truth. Sometimes this is really something that only God can do. Only God can lift the veil, right? We cannot pray hard enough to override His will. You cannot arrange the circumstances of your home in exactly the right way to produce His spiritual awakening. I can remember a time when we were also going through our marriage stresses of leaving little pamphlets next to his bed, hoping he's going to open it and read it and it's going to change something. All of this stuff is really fruitless because it's God's work to awaken. What you can do, what you are called to do, is to remain faithful in your position, in the portion that's been allotted to you. Pray, stand, intercede, love, and then open your hands and trust that God is working in the places that you cannot see. And this is not giving up, right? It takes a very brave person to be able to stay and stand in that place, to love when it's hard to love, to intercede when you're tired, right? And God can just give us the grace that we need, that abundant grace that He gives us each day to carry what we need to carry. And sometimes it feels really unfair. I know that's often been my cry to the Lord is, Lord, it's not fair that I have to carry this responsibility alone. It's not fair that all of this is on me, right? But in the end of the day, we have a responsibility, number one, towards God, right, in what He's called us to do, the places that He's placed us in, the positions that we are in, right? We have a responsibility to lean on Him, not in our own strength. And we have to think about the bigger picture. What is God doing through our family? What is He going to do through our children? Who is watching our situation that will be inspired by it, where it's going to be a testimony to others to pray, to stand, to intercede, and to love, right? And we need to remember that that husband that you've got, right, that you might be struggling with. And this was something the Lord said to me when I was standing for my marriage, is He said, I loved you when you were unlovable, when you were a sinner, when you were unsanctified, when you were living a life that didn't glorify me. And this too is my son, and I love him in the same way I loved you. So we have to take that stance of we're not more righteous than them, right? And that we were at a place where God had to rescue us, had to bring us enlightenment, had to lift the veil for us, right? So we have to trust that He's going to do the same for those in our lives that we feel are not measuring up. So before I let you go today, I just want to say something to all of you that have been carrying this quietly for a long time. The ones that haven't told anyone about how tired they are. The ones who smile at church, hold it together at home, and then cry in the car. God sees you, right? Not just what you do, not just the prayers you pray and the things you hold together. He sees you. He knows the exact weight of what you're carrying, and He hasn't asked you to carry it alone, right? Isaiah 54 verse 5 says that your Maker is your husband. The Lord of hosts is His name. That verse was written to a woman who felt abandoned and uncovered. And God's response was not to fix her situation immediately, right? It was to remind her that He is her covering, He is her protection, He is the partner that no human being can fully be. So if you're feeling that you're in a place of just down, maybe downtrodden, weary, stand up. Stay gentle, right? Because it's easy for us to become hard and angry or bitter or resentful. Stay tender, stay gentle, and know that heaven sees every faithful step you take and that the Lord will give you what you need to get through this season. So if this episode landed for you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it, and join us next time as we tackle the question from the other side. Why do men struggle with spiritual leadership in the first place? And what is actually happening in their hearts, their history, and their nervous system when they go quiet? That episode is one I think both the husband and the wife, or whoever you're in a relationship with, should listen to together. So don't miss it. And I'll see you in the next one. This episode of Take Up Your Space is brought to you by the Take Up Your Space healing programs. If you're ready to go deeper, my self-help manual has been developed into a full course to guide you step by step through healing on a psychological, spiritual, and physiological level. And if you feel called to help others, I also offer a coaching pathway and facilitator training so you can bring this message of freedom into your community. You can learn more and find the right program for you at lionsarise.org. Remember, you were created to take up your space.